Me, 42 male with my wife, 42 female. She cheated on me with her ex-husband who she claimed she hated. Yesterday, I found out that my wife had slept with her ex-husband several months ago. During the 8 years we have been together, she always told me how much she hated him. When we first got together, she told me all kinds of horrible things he did to her. Some examples are, house must be spotless. If not, it means you don't love me or our kids. Can't be on the phone after 6 p.m. with her friends because it's his time. She wasn't allowed to go to college because if she wasn't home taking care of the house and their child, it means she doesn't love them. One time, she decided to get a pixie cut. He has his children tell her that she looks like a boy. They chanted, "Mommy looks like a boy. Mommy looks like a boy." List goes on and on. The majority of our relationship, they usually spoke on the phone concerning their children, which usually ended with them screaming and cussing at each other. This past June or July, I can't exactly remember. Their oldest daughter was getting ready to start college. He lives 5 miles from, so it would make it easier for both to see their children at any time they wished. They decided a carpool to save gas and show unity to their child. They bought her furniture and so forth for her new apartment. They went together pretty much every Saturday, sometimes Sundays, to visit their daughter. Shortly after this began, I noticed their phone calls became a lot more civil. Then I started getting a bad feeling. One morning, I decided to ask her if she was having feeling for her ex-husband. She looked down to the floor and started crying and said she didn't know. Deep down inside, I knew something happened. I asked her if something happened between them. She said, "No. I lost my crap and broke our coffee carafe spelling." I wasn't proud of that moment. I scared her very much. She thought I might hurt her. Hurting her wasn't even in my mind. I never broke anything before, never hit walls or threatened her in any way. They had been married for 16 years and have 3 children together. 2 oldest have graduated high school. Since then, things between us fell apart. Several months go by. I was not invited to her family's Christmas party. This past weekend, we decided to separate since things didn't seem to improve. We figured that the time apart would help clear our heads and approach things different. I moved to the other side of town with an excellent deal on a house. This Tuesday, I was talking to a good female friend that happens to be someone I highly respect. She's the wife of my boss. I walked past her and she stopped me to ask what was wrong. She said she could tell something wasn't right with me for quite a while. I gave her the details on what happened. And at the end of the conversation, she gripped my shoulder and said that she was sorry, but she needed to tell me that she really thinks my wife cheated on me with her ex. I didn't believe it. That night, I kept thinking about it over and over. Yesterday, I spoke to my wife and told her that I think I'm being a fool and that I really felt that something happened between her and her husband. It took a few hours, but she finally admitted that they had sex. She said what she did was selfish, and she was afraid to tell me because I would leave. She believed that he had changed, and her feelings for him came flooding back when he apologized for doing all the bad things to her. She said she really wanted us to work out, but her guilt kept her to be fully honest and open with me. I didn't call her names. I didn't even shout. I kept my cool. I was actually surprised in how calm I was. I told her that we are done. She tried to call me. But I told her I didn't want to see or hear her voice. So since then, it's been all through text. She said she wanted to die and can't believe she destroyed a good thing. Last night, I burned my favorite picture of her. It was actually her idea. I took a picture of the burning picture and sent it to her. She asked if it made me feel better. It didn't. That was my freaking favorite picture. I didn't eat at all yesterday. Still haven't. I couldn't sleep. Every time I close my eyes, I see graphical images of the 2 of them together. She said that if I can forgive her, she would never speak To her ex-husband again. I'm conflicted. I want to spit on her yet. I want to pull her close, hold her tight, and never let her go. I wasn't perfect in our relationship. I do have issues sharing my feelings, she's told me that several times. How do I get over my dream girl? We've been together for 8 years, married 5, and have a child together. He asked the question community, let's see what you have to say. Tenebras 1 says, you gave her everything and all she did was throw it all away for someone who did nothing but hurt her. At this point, I would walk away. Why invest anything else in someone who could so coldly lie to you and cheat on you? She didn't confess to you and held on to it for months. At this point, I don't see why you would forgive her or even why try to make it work. She effed up a good thing. That is on her. You deserve someone who won't cheat on you, plain and simple. The op says, I'm still in shock. I like to believe we were so happy. Her own brother told me last night that he always hated her ex-husband and always loved that I treated her sister like a queen. My self-esteem is totally wrecked. I feel like a tossed piece of garbage. To Numbers 1 responds back again. Your self-esteem will rebound when you realize it was nothing to do with you and everything to do with her. That's why it's common for people to get therapy after something like this to keep their head on straight and get another perspective that doesn't have an emotional attachment to the situation. I'm sure it's a mistake she will regret, but she regrets getting caught more than anything. If she really regretted it, she would have confessed you immediately instead of shutting you out like she did. Unfortunately, it's time to lawyer up and no longer contact her, except through the lawyers. Keeping your distance will help heal faster than being constantly reminded of her. Also, I'm sure once her family finds out the reason you are divorcing, she will step up her efforts to try and win you back. Her family might even try to talk to you. I suggest you block them all out and focus on yourself going forward. Valhalla Ra has a last comment before we move on to the next story. The key issue is you now know that she is willing to lie to you when it is in her best interest. Not talking with the ex-husband moving forward isn't actually going to solve anything. Because in the end, it is about broken trust. You need to know deep down that you could trust her. Alone with her ex-husband in a hotel room to get back to a place where the relationship can thrive. You'd need to thrust her alone in a hotel room with any other man for that matter. Cutting out one temptation from her life doesn't fix the trust. So the question is, what would it take for you to trust her again like that? If there is nothing, then it is probably time to move on and find a new dream girl. Since you have a child together, you will need to interact moving forward in either case. Be there for your kid and try to let go of your hate even if you don't stay. On to the next story. My 31 female, husbands, 30 male, old college fling, 32 female, moved into our neighborhood recently. I really need some outside opinions and thoughts right now. I feel like I'm not crazy. But there could be a chance. I am in this situation. My husband and I have been together for 6 years in total, but we have been married for over 2 years now. We have a very happy yet simple life that I really appreciate living with him. Both of us have our day jobs, our hobbies, our friends, and we always enjoy traveling to a new place once or twice every year. We have talked about children in the past, but at this point, I'm not sure if we are actually going to go through with having kids. Either way, I'm happy, so I have no expectations on that front. At the end of September, someone new moved in a couple houses down on our block. Funny enough, it was my husband's old college, fleeing, friends with benefits, that he was with before we started dating exclusively. I know a lot about this woman from the early days of us dating, but I couldn't believe that she actually was moving into our neighborhood. It was pretty clear that someone was moving in at the time, so me and my husband went over to introduce ourselves, which is how we found out. I have always felt a little insecure knowing that she lives only a couple houses down. Why? Well, not only did they have a thing for almost 2 years, but my husband said at the time that he had feelings for her and he wanted a relationship. As time went on, he got disinterested in just hooking up with her. And that is when him and I ended up meeting. So for me, it worked out well, not so much for her, and I could definitely tell that it bothered her the few meetings I had with her. This past weekend, our neighbors next door had us, and a few other people over for drinks and appetizers. Funny enough, they actually invited over Judy, fake name for the story. The evening went well, but what bothered me the most was seeing Judy pretty much hang around my husband all night. She was always laughing at what he was saying. She was rubbing his back and touching him, and she even threw out some pretty exaggerated sexual jokes or comments about my husband. This bothered me all evening. When my husband and I got home, I talked to him about what I saw, but he thought I was making a bigger deal out of a situation that had no leeway. For some reason, there is something I just don't trust about this situation. Judy leaving on our street Saturday night was a perfect example of my suspicions. I can totally tell that Judy wants to have a second chance with my husband, even though she had her chance for almost 2 years of hooking up with my husband in college. The touching, the flirting, and the sexual remarks from her just bothered me. To be frank, they still bother me. How can I go about the situation? I really want to tell Judy completely off. My interactions with her have been minuscule conversations where when my husband has run into her, she chats him up like there's no tomorrow. Is there something fishy going on between them? It doesn't seem like my husband is up to something. I just don't trust Judy. Let's throw it to the detectives of the community. Mason Saul, you kick us off. Take it from someone who has been married, divorced, had women want to have inappropriate sexual relations with me, and I got divorced with my ex choosing having sex with other men over our marriage. You've been married for 2 years. Over the years, there will be many duties and there will be many Richards or whatever name you want for the men who proposition you. So the problem is not the Judy or Richard. It's that you and your husband have clear communication of boundaries. And from there, you have to trust that you are with the kind of person who is aware of how the actions of others affect you emotionally. So your husband is the one who has to shut down the women who will be inappropriate. Just like how you will have to shut down the men, or other genders. It's 2016 after all. Otherwise, those people can just play the controlling jealous spouse card and use it to further drive a wedge between you and your spouse. The strongest, monogamous marriages are when Judy slides a hand on your husband's back and says some sexual joke like, "Yeah, I'll bet you like that." And his response is to immediately walk over to you and say, "Hey, Judy, you've met my wife. Right? Yeah. She's great. Best woman I could have asked for. You two should chat." As he walks away, he mouths, "Save me." Something like that anyway. Every situation is different. Be very direct. "Hubby, this is hurting me." Watching a woman, any woman, intimately touch you, make inappropriate sexual comments with you, and you receive all but, like it's okay, it hurts a lot. I'm committed to this relationship to you. I married you so we could be a team. I know you would be upset if a guy was doing that with me and I encouraged it, but I wouldn't because you are the only guy and the only attention I need. Do you feel the same? Are we a team? While you're mad though, has the last comment, your husband was completely wrong. To invalidate your legitimate concerns, Judy was touching him and making sexual comments. That's not at all appropriate. My boyfriend has a flirty coworker. He dodges her if she tries to touch him and has set boundary. And reinforces them if he needs to. Talk to your husband. He needs to be willing to make and enforce boundaries like no touching. If she makes inappropriate comments, he needs to shut that down. He should be able to understand why you, his wife, is uncomfortable with her actions given that they have a past sexual history. If he's unwilling to do so, I'd be Very concerned, he likes the attention and may welcome further